Fishing, huge in New Bedford, of course.
It's everywhere. Gloucester, New Bedford, Fall River, everywhere.
You're right about that. What would you do as senator to ensure that the fishing industry's survival, to ensure its survival?
Well, if you have that answer, then please let me know, because it's being squeezed, as you know, with a lot of the proposals that are being pushed. It's putting a lot of the smaller fishermen at a competitive disadvantage, and the wealthier seem to be surviving. I know the Magnuson-Stevens Act is coming up for renewal, and it would be nice to have some more input from the fishermen themselves versus just bureaucrats all the time.
Do you think there's over-regulation against overfishing? In other words, in the pendulum test, the back and forth between regulating to prevent overfishing and deregulating to allow fishing and striking that balance, where are we now, and where do you think we should be?
It depends on what they're fishing for. There are certain stocks that are in abundance, but the act as it's in play now, it's pretty draconian. You have to wait for all the stocks to recover, versus targeting certain species that are in abundance and that you could get without hurting the species that are having difficulties restocking. So there needs to be some common sense, and that's what I bring. I bring common sense and try to work very closely with the fishermen and the businesses, because, as you know, the smaller the boats get, the smaller the ancillary industries get, from the ice producers to the net repairers to the people that are welding and repairing the boats. Once those industries are gone, then the whole nature of Fall River, New Bedford, Gloucester, the nature of their society is going to be in peril.
The fishing industry, huge. New Bedford, Gloucester. What would you do to strike the balance between overfishing and over-regulating?
I've already worked as Attorney General with the folks involved in this up at the fishing auction in Gloucester. We had some reports that there was overzealous federal regulation. It seemed unbalanced to me based upon my experience as a state and a federal enforcement agency person, and I think that we need to get that balance. I think the Inspector General is looking at it, but I'm going to stay very much involved in that industry that's part of our history and certainly part of our future. We certainly want to protect the environment, but we cannot have overzealous regulation that's putting people out of work and is threatening, in fact, the entire industry.
Even as it tries to save it?
As it tries to save fish, but we realize that we can protect the environment and we can also promote businesses. Many of them are family-owned, smaller. Some of these regulations are designed for big corporate fishing on the West Coast. I think we need a balance, and we need that kind of assessment that this is over-regulation of the fishing industry, not necessary in order to protect the fish.
Government run amok?
I think in some respects. I think the jury is out in some respects, but from at least what I've seen, the questions that I have asked indicates to me that we need some answers as to why the kind of regulation we've seen by NOAA on the North Shore appears to be not only excessive, but in some instances punitive.
Including the South Shore, New Bedford, our area?
I think that they've had similar issues around regulation, and it seems to me that as a new U.S. Senator, it can and should be my job to make sure that federal agencies that have a mission are sticking to that mission, not stepping outside that, and that we balance what we need to for fishermen, for their business, and for the families that are involved in this fishing industry.
Fishing, a big subject down in New Bedford, of course, one of the country's biggest fishing ports, right up there with Gloucester. What could you do as senator to ensure that the fishing industry not only survives but thrives?
Well, I met with Mayor Lang to talk about the fishing industry, and he's done a fantastic job, pushing the point of making sure we're both environmentally responsible, but we still have jobs for fishermen. And so what they've done with the scallops has been fantastic. They've really freed up some scallop beds, and it hasn't hurt the industry whatsoever. It hasn't hurt the environment. So there's got to be a balance between those two things, and we've got to protect those jobs, but also keep our environment good.
In the balance between overfishing and over-regulating, where do you think we stand now, and where do you think we should be?
Well, I think we're coming back into balance. We might have gone too far in over-regulating, but now we're coming back into balance, and that'll be good for the fishermen and good for New Bedford.
Fishing. In New Bedford, of course, it's a huge subject, and it's a question of balancing overfishing as against over-regulating.
That's right.
Where would you split that hair, and how? And how could you help New Bedford and ensure the survival, and even not just that it survives, but that the fishing industry in New Bedford thrives?
Yes, well, I think it's important. It's a long-time industry in New Bedford and also in Gloucester and other parts of our state. It's a big industry for us, and it's very important. So what I would do is, first of all, bring the parties together. I mean, I think we have to find the right balance between our environmental needs and our fishing industry needs. And my life has been about being a bridge builder and bringing people together. So I'd meet with both sides, and then what I do is say, let's bring together, and how do we find the right balance? Because we need to find the right balance. Secondly, I think, New Bedford has a port, which I think needs to be modernized, and we can use it in a 21st century way to bring more goods through there. And if we make some investments in modernizing the port, it can actually be a port of entry, not just for Massachusetts, but for New England and for our country. It's a huge opportunity that we could, with the right investment, we could retool it, and we could use New Bedford as a gateway for goods coming into our state and into America from all over the world. And I'd invest in that as well.
The fishing industry, a big deal, of course, for New Bedford. How would you strike the balance, if elected, between controlling overfishing and controlling over-regulating?
Right.
How do you find the happy medium?
Well, by working with people. And there is probably no happy medium. There was a medium, but there's no happy medium because some of the people involved with this are so adamant on both directions. And I wouldn't be the first. Right now, when it comes to fishing, I pretty much listen to Bonnie Frank and John Taney, the other two that have the biggest fishing industries in Massachusetts. And I work with them and through them, and I would continue to do so. But, of course, I'd have to learn a little bit more about the issue. And I would do what I always do, which is try to bring different people together and try to find that balance. It's been able to be found over the years, difficult, a lot of consternation on both sides. But I really can't imagine what Massachusetts would be like without a healthy fishing industry. And I think everybody has, at least I hope, everybody has that goal in mind.
Did I just hear what I thought I heard? A politician actually saying he doesn't know it all? He has to learn a little bit more about an issue?
I have to learn a lot about a lot of issues. I do it all the time. And I think people who think the politicians are supposed to know everything are doomed to disappointment. And this is one area that in my life and in my district, I don't have a big fishing industry. I haven't had to learn the details of the industry, a little bit, tangentially though. But at the same time, that's what government is all about. We rely on each other. It's one of the reasons that Bonnie Frank and I get along so well, and Jim McGovern and I get along so well. We work together very well. We don't all pretend to be experts in every different area. We have our different expertise, our different interests. And on this particular one, this is one where I turn to Bonnie and John on, and would continue to do so even in the Senate, even though it obviously would then become a little bit more of my responsibility as well.